Hello there, I'm Dr. Karen Janes, psychologist and energy healer in the UK, and welcome to the Life Made Easier podcast, where you'll find ancient wisdom with a modern approach. In each episode, we'll share useful information from the world of energy healing. We hope to help you develop and enhance your energy intelligence to make your life easier in simple and practical ways.
I'm Dr. Tiffany Hunter. I'm also an energy healer, but I'm in the United States. Today's episodes, we're going to talk about boundaries, what kinds of boundaries there are, how to create them, and how to use them to create a more peace and ease in your life and your relationships. Although we will be touching on all the boundaries, obviously we're going to be talking most about the energetic boundaries. And we say peace and ease in our life, I think, because when people think about boundaries, they often think about conflict. They think about creating separation and space between themselves and other people and situations. And we're hoping to address some of that and to see boundaries as something that helps regulate our body and our systems and helps us show up in a way that gives us more capacity to be closer and offer more to people and situations.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful to, as you say, to kind of think about the different ways that boundaries might show up. I guess lots of people think about their own physical boundaries in terms of touch, emotional boundaries. What am I comfortable sharing or expressing? And then, but as you say, the energetic boundaries are really the bit that we want to talk about a bit more. And really that kind of connection with how do we feel inside? Because I think how we manage our boundaries, whatever kind of boundary it might be, it really is to do with how comfortable am I. If you're not comfortable with what I'm saying, you know, how many of us have gone along with stuff because we didn't want to upset someone or all of that kind of stuff. And I think maybe I think this will come up again later, but maybe it's worth mentioning at this point that there are specific parts of our energy system that are kind of will be useful for us to talk a bit more about, which we'll do that. And we have a number of other podcasts which really might be useful for you to listen to that we've already done about some of those parts of us, particularly our aura. I think that's perhaps one of the most important parts that we'll be talking a bit more about, but we have other episodes that do a deeper dive into that.
I think boundaries are particularly difficult for women. I think women have been told, I think this is true for everybody, but I think women in particular are told that if you take care of other people, they will take care of you. If you get everything done, if you say yes to everything, then it'll be your turn and you'll be able to get what you need. And I think that makes it particularly difficult to say no to things. I also think women are taught that not only is it okay, but there's an expectation to go past their own comfort. I think that's probably also not helped by the fact that I think women are really good at going past their own comfort.
Although you could argue not as good as we think we are, because actually we can do it, but what price are we paying when we do?
Yes. Yeah. But most women that I know will tend to get it done, say yes, just get on with it, and then pay the price later and sort it out when they have to either have the cry or whatever it is they need to do later in private. That's not the best way to manage stress. And having good boundaries is a really great way of avoiding that cycle.
You make me think though, actually, about the kind of history of that, because I forget all the dates. I'm never very good at remembering dates, but you know, it's when you think about women used to be considered in many cultures to be possessions of men, like they weren't actually people. And they were just a chattel, a possession, and you know, even things like having our own bank accounts, being able to vote, being able to own property, all those different things. So I guess historically it's not surprising that women have tended to, you know, perhaps can struggle with this a bit more than maybe the average man might.
Absolutely. And people of color as well, of course. And those are two historical categories of people who, when they will try to set boundaries are accused of being uncooperative, angry, disruptive, and are not allowed to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think one of the values of being able to set a boundary is the image that I have in my head is kind of a medieval castle that has the moat and the wall around it. And if the moat and the wall is doing a really good job, whether or not it's a metaphorical one or a mental one or an energetic one in the case of the aura, if it's doing a good job, then everything on the inside can relax and sort of get on with the day and feel safe and feel like everything's okay. And if that boundary is not safe and is not doing its job, then the person on the inside needs to be vigilant and preoccupied with keeping that system safe. And so that's that for me. When you know that your boundaries are doing their job, then the system and the person on the inside can relax and trust that to be able to function for them.
You make me think as well. I mean, again, I think we'll probably come to this a bit more, but boundaries are kind of a. I mean, it's there's two sides of either side of the boundary, isn't there? And you when you were talking about a kind of castle or a fort, you made me think of some work I did with a particular client a long time ago, actually, who'd almost like built a wall around herself, and it's kind of how it felt in her energy, like she was this fortress and wouldn't let anyone in. And we actually did some work, and part of it was kind of visualization, but part of it was working with her energy system and releasing out the emotions. But she'd built this wall as a self-protective measure to kind of a metaphorical and kind of energetic wall, if you like, to protect those emotions inside that felt really overwhelming, to protect herself from she'd had a lot of really quite abusive experiences, and so to protect herself from being hurt again. So boundaries are kind of funny things, like they both can keep too much inside and not enough inside in a way, and can be about us not saying no to other people, but also not allowing I think you mentioned something about kind of intimacy and closeness. They're both ways, but I think that idea of a kind of fortress, like what level of fortress do I need? does it need to be like full on armored castle, or am I good in a medium-sized house, or a tent, or I don't know.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when we start. If you ask yourself the question, what's the difference between a boundary and an obstacle? And again, I think it's very helpful to move away from thinking about a boundary as a separation, but thinking it more as what is the state of being? What is the requirement for what I need to be able to actually show up? Right? So what do I need to engender closeness here? What do I need to be able to say yes here? Versus an obstacle, which creates separation. So, for example, can I say yes to a social situation, right? There's social boundaries. Am I saying yes to showing up and being present to an invitation, right? How much time am I giving up? Or am I able to say, I'd love to see you, but I really need a quiet weekend to myself? And then when I'm saying yes to that, I'm actually able to show up and be completely present with somebody.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, I mean, some of that can be very practical, can't it? Like time and conserving what we might think of as our more physical energy in a way. But also does perhaps overlap a bit with the idea of kind of an emotional boundary. And I think all these things are kind of, we've divided it up in a way, but it's of course, as it always is, interrelated. But the kind of emotional side of that, do I have spare capacity right now? Do I am I just looking after other people when actually I need to be looking after my own emotions? And again, that kind of idea of where does the boundary need to be? There will be choosing who you share stuff with. Sometimes I find with clients, when I start talking to, and particularly people who've tended never to really say much about their own stuff, their own challenges, when I start talking to them about maybe opening up more, I think sometimes they can feel very fearful, like I'm kind of suggesting they should go tell everybody everything about how they're feeling. And absolutely, it's it's good to choose who you talk to about different feelings, and there might be, you might be comfortable telling the person in the supermarket that you had a late night and you're feeling kind of really a bit wrung out, but you might not tell them that your partner just kind of threw a bombshell in your relationship, or something like that. And it's both not our job to fix other people, and not our job to expect others to fix us, and finding the right way for you. Where is that boundary with different people to share your emotions, to express how you feel, without, some people talk about being oversharers, and we probably all know those people who seem to tell everybody everything, and the people who never say anything, and sometimes just being, just reflecting a bit, where are my boundaries in that sense? Is that where I'd like them to be? Do I think that's healthy? Does it help me? Or have I got the balance a bit off somewhere?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the social boundary that you're talking about of where do I want to put my time, where do I want to show up, and the emotional boundary of how much do I want to share, both of those situations very much require the ability to monitor oneself. Where's my comfort zone?
Mm-hmm.
And it also occurs to me that it can be helpful in both those situations to have some language on the tip of the tongue, to be able to say, yes, I'd love to do that, but I need a quiet weekend. Or let me check my schedule and get back to you, to give that heartbeat of a moment before you immediately say yes. Or I'm not completely comfortable sharing that with you. Perhaps we could talk about something else.
Yeah, or even like, can I just I just need to check something, or or I need to think about that. I'm not sure I can commit to that right now, or just I can't talk about this in this moment. I'll come back to you another time, or and sometimes even just trying to make a bit of a joke of it, or it can help us to just create that space and have a think. Do I have the time to do that? Do I want to share this with this person? Does that feel good or not? And if you err on the side of caution, you can always go back later, but it's often harder once. I mean, certainly if you've shared some emotional stuff that you then wish you hadn't, but if you've agreed to do something, I mean, I see that a lot, and that can, cause so much resentment, because then we just can feel cross with ourselves, or we can resent the other person, or like, why have I agreed to do this thing? Actually, I'm exhausted. But it's often harder once we've agreed to then, retract that and say, actually, I can't do this. Although I think that is also valid, to say, I've had a thing, I know I said yes, and I'm really sorry to let you down, but I just can't fit this in this week, or I have, too many other commitments, or whatever. But I think you're absolutely right that having a few almost stock phrases that work for you can really, and trying to practice those can really help you to pull those out as more of a reflex. I need to check my calendar. Yeah.
I think that includes the same thing. If you're in people, again, when we back into the category of emotional boundaries, in a conversation that we'd like to be able to get out of, the ability to interrupt somebody and to say, excuse me, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I have a commitment that I need to honor. Can we continue this conversation later? To be able to extract ourselves from situations and give ourselves permission to be able to do that. You and I are very skilled at doing that. We simply have to, because we have to time keep with clients. And how do you interrupt people? Which is, for us in that context, it's actually honoring and respecting their time of wanting to move the situation a long time. But in the context of boundaries, it's how to extract yourself from the situation so that you can honor your own discomfort if you're not comfortable there. It's an important thing to do.
And acknowledging that, it's there will always be times when it's easier and harder to do. And I think it's really important for us to give ourselves a bit of time, as hopefully as non-judgmentally as possible when we do realize we've perhaps not said no where we should, or not interrupted when we should, or whatever. We've kind of not put the boundary where it would have been good to put it. To just reflect on what was going on for me right now, at that moment. What was difficult about that? Was it something about me? Was it something, is it always that person I struggle to do that with? That's that. I think we may well recognize people in our lives. Do you know what? I'm really good at doing it with everybody else. That person always somehow manages to get in and persuade me to do stuff I don't want to do, or seems to get me to share stuff that I didn't really want to share. So it's, and you might sometimes need a bit of help with that, to untangle that. It might be hard for you to work that out for yourself, or, just talking it through with a friend or something might help you to work out why a particular situation or person might be more difficult for you.
Yeah, and I think that conversation with ourselves really is so much more helpful and effective if we can see it as a system issue, if we can really understand it as, how well am I regulating my system? Why does this make my system uncomfortable? Why am I getting dysregulated here? And what do I need to get regulated again? Because it's not an easy thing to recognize in the social situation or the emotional situation. But when it comes to the energetic system, it's very difficult, because it's so much more subtle, right? And it's when we talk about emotional boundaries, one of the biggest ones that often gets blurred with people is the request from somebody that you're supposed to make them feel better, or you're supposed to regulate their emotions with your behavior. So stop doing that and start doing this because you're making me feel bad. But that happens energetically all the time. And it's hard enough to recognize that when it's happening outwardly and emotionally. But when it's happening through the energy, it's really difficult to identify it.
You make me think as well, the other podcast I think would be really useful for people to listen to on this subject is the one we've done about energy of the world and how that affects us. And that would include like the energy of places, but also the other people's energy. But to kind of recap that and what I mentioned at the beginning about auras, which, depending on how many of our other podcasts you've listened to and what else you know about this kind of stuff, you may or may not feel like you know what those things mean. So the way we kind of understand people and their energy systems, well, all mammals really, or even all living things to varying degrees, all things that are alive have an energy field that is bigger than their physical body. And certainly in the case of humans, this is something which can change in size. It's not a static, fixed thing. The easiest way to probably think about it is if you were to imagine drawing a stick figure on a piece of paper and then encircling it in a kind of broadly egg-shaped shape. And that would represent the outside of someone's aura, so their energy field. And if you were to imagine two of those stick figures next to each other, or two people next to each other, the closer physically we get, the more likely that some of our energy is going to overlap. And I often talk about it to people in terms of, we have physical parts of our body that we, as a general rule, might feel more or less comfortable with someone else who we don't know very well or don't know at all touching. So we shake hands with people when we first meet them. Often we might bump a shoulder against somebody and not think too much of it. But if other parts of our body bumped up against someone else, we would only normally allow that to happen with somebody we're really, really comfortable with. Some people you will be comfortable hugging, some people you won't. And in the same way, how much of our energy system we're comfortable allowing to kind of come into contact with someone else's will depend on, on a lot of factors. How much space our energy is taking up also will depend on a lot of different factors, which we can talk through a bit more. I always think whenever we talk about this subject, I always think of Tiffany and I first met in London and being on the tube with people crammed in like the underground, crammed in like kind of sardines in a tin, and trying to like keep your aura neatly around you so you weren't kind of like being too affected. But in terms of thinking about our boundaries, you know, the physical boundary of our body is our skin. The energy boundary of our energy system is the outside edge of our aura. So we can think of the aura as being somewhat similar to the skin in terms of how it works and the functions that it serves.
Very much so. I think they go together. I think in the way that people can be taught that they are responsible for making other people comfortable, and that the way that they do that is by not holding their boundaries, by giving in to other people. That can happen emotionally and time-wise and energetically. Because if you're doing one, you're probably doing all three.
Yeah.
But the good news is that if you start fixing one, you can probably you'll start fixing all three, right? So by breaking it down in this way, hopefully one of them will seem easier than others. So if you start practicing the one that seems the most accessible, the other ones will start to follow.
Yeah, you make me think actually, because if I even think about it, feels like different things happen in you. Like our aura is changing all the time. So just like our heart rate is changing all the time, our blood pressure is changing all the time. So depending on how safe, comfortable we feel, how active we are, whether we've just eaten, all those, you know, our emotional state, all those different things, how much we're thinking, whether we're resting and sleeping or we're running around, all those things affect our body systems, and they affect our energy system as well. And even just thoughts in our head can start to affect our aura, our energy. So I was just mulling as you were saying that actually, if I start thinking about, do you know what, I'm going to just cancel a few things this weekend and give myself more time, that feels like there's a change in my body. My body might start to relax more with a kind of like, you know, and my aura will then respond to that. So I think it can sometimes feel quite overwhelming, but I think that's such a good point, that just start with one bit, one small kind of section, and gradually the rest, they are all interrelated, so they will build and they will start to get easier.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's very helpful to remember that these, again, thinking of it as a nervous system experience, that we are getting signals that we're not comfortable. We are getting signals that we want more safety, that we're overriding.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can take a step back and treat ourselves the way that we might treat a rescue puppy or a rescue cat that has had a history of challenges, and we bring home and they're a little nervous, we wouldn't force them. We wouldn't, you know, if we've brought home a rescue puppy and they're cowering in the corner as we walk towards them with a treat, we wouldn't grab them by the neck, pull them towards us, and stuff the treat into their mouths, right? We're not going to do that. We're going to slowly coax them forward, and we're going to slowly get them to see that everything's okay. And there's a relationship between us, the personality, and us, the nervous system. And when there's been years of bullying the nervous system to do things that it really doesn't want to do, ignoring the signals that are saying, I don't like this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be at this party, I don't want to be talking to this person, I don't want to be telling this story that you're forcing me to tell, I don't want to disclose these things, I don't want to, whatever it is. When there's a history of that, there needs to be some time where the nervous system can start to trust that those things aren't going to happen, and to treat it with some gentleness so that it can begin to trust us that we are listening, we are going to listen to the signals, and when it gives us those signals, they will be honored, and to build that trust back up again.
Yeah, and almost just to kind of backtrack a little bit, because we were saying about you know, how important it is to understand that there is an energy part of us when we're trying to navigate this. And I always think that nearly always that seems to add an extra layer of kind of letting yourself off the hook. Um, so often I think we can, and again, maybe particularly women more, um, we can berate ourselves for I'm weak because I keep saying yes to things, or because I'm judging myself. I feel bad that I'm not valuing myself enough to take time for myself, or I'm stupid because once again I told the gossip at the school gate too much about what was going on in my life. It's like we can be so harsh and critical with ourselves about some of these things, and feel quite powerless. But if we have an understanding of both what Tiffany was saying about the nervous system, but also that stuff will be happening in someone else's energy if they are trying to do that thing that Tiffany described, where they want you to make them feel better. So all of us are these little blobs sitting around feeling uncomfortable, kind of in our own soup of anxieties and insecurities and worries. And if we've been taught that we can like just tug on somebody else and kind of say, I really need you to come here and do this with me, and then you're kind of feeling, oh, but I feel sorry for them, and I know they really need me, and and you haven't stopped to think, what do I need? And sometimes you might choose to do it because you care about them and it's really important and there's a genuine need. And that, again, I guess is another challenge with boundaries, trying to work out when is it okay to stretch yourself a bit and when really should you, put that boundary firm. But I think understanding that there will be stuff happening in someone else's energy, there will be stuff happening physiologically in someone else's nervous system, that your nervous system, that your energy system will be responding to. So it's not as simple as saying, well, you need to stick up for yourself more, or you need to say no more often, or you're pathetic because you don't, or those kind of, inner critic stuff that we often say to ourselves when we're struggling to put boundaries in place.
Yeah, we can be so incredibly harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is also a good place where energy healing can be incredibly helpful, because a lot of the reasons for this behavior are held in the body, held in the energetic field. If people want to go look for more detailed information about that, I'd recommend they go look into Peter Levine's work for somatic memories, or more recently, the polyvagal theory work. There's some really interesting stuff there about that. But the idea that it's not happening, as Karen says, it's not happening because we're weak. It's not happening because we've let ourselves down again. It's happening because, well, look, I found about this actually relatively recently. It was in the last year that some bright spark has added fawning to fight, flight, or freeze. Really new. Like I still don't think it was in the last year that, I thought adding freeze to fight or flight was genius. And again, women mostly are the freezers, right? Fight or flight is usually as many people, but most women I know will freeze when they're threatened. But really, most women I know will fawn.
Yeah.
Fawn over. They will appease, they will please when they're threatened. And that's a lot of what's happening with the boundaries. The yes, 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 because I can't say no, is to appease. And on the surface, it's to appease the other person. But really, if you scratch that surface, it's to appease our own nervous systems. It's to relieve the tension in our own nervous systems, to relieve the tension in the nervous system so that it will relax. We will appease. And that's where energy healing can be so useful, because relieving whatever it is that's causing the tension will allow the boundary setting to be far easier for people.
Yeah, and I often find myself talking to, again, particularly women clients, about the idea of taking up space. One of the things I think can happen with that appeasing that you're talking about with our energy is we get small. And sometimes you will see people's posture like physically change, but we tend to draw our energy in so as not to be too intrusive to other people. I'm just going to be as small as I can. And sometimes, so again, if we go back to this, what I was describing about the aura being, I mean, it kind of is all connected into your body, but sometimes it can be helpful to think about it, certainly in terms of boundaries, as the outside edge of it. Even right now, you could maybe, as long as you're not driving, maybe take a breath and just see if you can have a sense around, close your eyes if it helps you to concentrate. Have a sense around your body. So just take a minute, be aware of your skin. So your skin is the outside edge of your physical body. And then if you think about the energy of the room around you, there will just be a sense of, and even I almost want to take out the word energy, because I think we can get, oh, what am I meant to be feeling, some big fancy thing. You will have a sense that the room feels different to how you feel. There is, and you might have a sense of, do I take up any extra space beyond my physical body? Is there a sense of, there might be places where the chair is touching you, but there might be places where the chair isn't physically touching you, but you still have a sense, like maybe some of the legs of the chair, they're not physically touching you, but can you almost have a sense in space where they are next to your body? And just doing very simple things like that can help you to get a sense of, I have an energetic part of me that is a bit bigger than my physical body. If you think of something really relaxing, does how that energy space around you change? Does it feel like it gets any bigger or smaller? Equally, if you think about something that you would find kind of anxiety provoking, does it feel like it gets any bigger or smaller? Does anything change? And just kind of playing around with stuff. If I imagine I'm sitting by the ocean, does that make it change? If I imagine that I'm in a crowded underground train, does that make it feel different? And that can start to, I mean, you could also try this by going to places, but I think sometimes just imagining it in your head is enough. And then if you were to imagine standing like a warrior person and really allowing that energy around you to be big, how does that feel? Would that be easier to kind of say no to something that you didn't really want to do? Play around with that, see how that kind of works for you, and we'd love to know if you find it helpful.
Or what other possibilities are going on. So hopefully that helps. I mean, hopefully by kind of giving some examples as well, that you can start off small, like saying things like, let me just go check my schedule, I'll get back to you, just to give yourself some pauses. I know somebody who also suggested taking an audit of your yeses at the end of the week. All the things that you said yes to, just to check in with yourself about how you felt about that, to give you a sense of how you're managing your day. Something I know, Karen, you and I both do is we schedule in recovery time. And, spaces between sessions, spaces between work and home. Yeah, I wish I could say I scheduled in meditation time, but that would be a big fat lie.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes even when I pull up on my driveway, I'll just sit for a moment before I come into the house. And I'm not really doing anything. I'm just like allowing, I mean, sometimes the drive itself can be enough. Sometimes I just, and equally the other way around, like before you go into work or, and I personally, I know that the times that I haven't allowed enough time between two things, whatever those things are, it feels more stressful. It feels, and often it's because I've violated my own boundaries, because I've squeezed something in that I probably kind of knew at the time I really shouldn't have squeezed in. There wasn't really time for. I've also got into a habit of, when I plan how much time to put between things, I always make myself add a bit of extra time for the getting there and the getting ready, because I'm terrible at underestimating how long those things will take me. So and I don't always get it right. And I think that's part of the trick as well, isn't it? Kind of giving yourself permission to not get it right and just say, I'm gonna, because I'm human and I'm doing my best. And the world is crazy and it's constantly encouraging us to rush and do more things. So
One of the boundaries that I am most proud of is that I have the ability to let a text sit on my phone. It was hard won. It was a hard won thing to be able to do. To say, if you text me on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock, I may not get back to you till Monday.
Yeah, there's all kinds of there's so many sort of little things like that I think we can do to just practice. And again, don't underestimate the possibility that you might need some help with some of this stuff, because there may be really good reasons, both emotionally and energetically, why it's quite hard for you at the moment to put the boundaries in place that you need. And it isn't your fault. It isn't just because you're not doing a good job of it. It's these things are genuinely hard to do.
No, and there is the experience of success in this area really doesn't feel like separation. And I think that's true on both sides of the fence. I do consider myself having pretty good boundaries. And I have had more than one person tell me that it's easier to trust me because of it. Because when I say yes, they believe me. And I think that's particularly true. The 8 o'clock at night text that I am answering, nobody has to take care of me. Because I'll take care of me.
That's a really good point. I mean, I have friends I don't ask for help because I know how terrible they are at saying no.
Yes, exactly.
Or I'm really, really careful of what I ask them for help with, because I don't feel confident in, and I'm doing that mostly as a kindness, because I know that I can think of a couple of people in my life who that's true about. And I always check myself. Okay, is there someone else I could ask to do this? Or, and, at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility to look after that person's boundaries for them.
But
and, we know who we can trust in that respect. It's, and then you feel good about asking somebody. And often it can be like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a no. It also occurs to me, it can be, my experience of you, Tiffany, is that sometimes you don't necessarily say no, but you will say, I can't do it today, or I can't do it this week. So I'm not actually saying I won't. I'm not saying I won't do it. I'm just saying I'm not going to tell you I can do this today, because I can't, or it'll be too high a cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but equally, one of the things that I like about you, and again, this is very much about our friendship, and this is a boundary issue, is that if you ask me to do something and it's really hard for me to do it today, and I say to you, that's going to be really hard, as you say, high price, can I do it tomorrow? And if you say, no, I really need it today, then I know that you've weighed that up and you really need it today. There's been a whole conversation that's happened without you and I having to have that conversation. I trust that when you make that request, you have calculated that. And that I can trust you to calculate that. To say, no, I really need it. Now I can say that. I can say, no, is it okay for you to tomorrow? Trusting that you will say no to me, that you can say, no, I really need it today. So it works both ways.
And it's a tricky thing, and it's one of those things, work in progress, probably a lifetime's work in finding the right balance. But I think the most important thing is that we really wanted to get across today is that sense of, there is an energy part of you that will be being affected by other people's energy part. And that does sometimes, in the same way that you can feel kind of a bit emotionally blackmailed by people sometimes, there will be an energetic pull as well. And doing some of these, visualizations to kind of circle right back round to what we were talking about at the beginning. Sometimes you might need to visualize a fortress around yourself. Sometimes, you can have a nice, soft, fluffy bubble. Sometimes you want the full armor and, or mirrors. Mirrors works quite well as well. I sometimes, if feel like I'm going to be a bit vulnerable to somebody, I might just imagine mirrors. So like their stuff kind of just reflects back. And on one level, these are mental tools, visualizations. So remembering to try and feel that in your body, try and make the feeling of it as real as you can. What would it feel like to be sitting inside a fortress? Not just, I'm just going to picture a fortress in my head. So that's the bit that helps you connect to your energy system.
Yeah, and you've probably heard one of us say this, that a great way to do that is to connect to gravity. So you have a sense of weight to your body, to connect to your body before you do those mental visualizations will help that process. And it doesn't take long to do.
Yeah. And check out our other podcasts about the aura and also about practicing Reiki, because that Reiki, if you can learn Reiki to do on yourself, which is Reiki is one type of energy healing, that can be a really, really good way to look after your aura. I mean, it doesn't make you amazing at always setting boundaries, but it really helps to make sure you're just like your skin, the healthier your skin is, the better it can correctly find the right level of boundary for stuff coming in and out. The better, the healthier state your aura is in, and the better you can work with it to manage these boundaries, and Reiki is really, really useful for that.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, everybody. It's lovely to spend this time with you. Please come support us on Patreon. Please support us by subscribing. We've got some extra bonus material. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.